Good morning. I'm Hassan Giordano, and this is your DMV Daily Dose for Tuesday, November 26, 2019.
It's currently clear and 35 degrees in Baltimore. Expect mostly cloudy skies starting in the afternoon. Today's high will be 57 degrees, and the low will be 33.
Last night, our beloved Baltimore Ravens rocked the Rams 45-6 as the league's MVP, and I don't think there's any doubt that who that will be this year. Quarterback Lamar Jackson became the only NFL quarterback to throw 5 touchdowns in a single game, and handing off for another one as he threw for 15 for 20 for 169 yards and had 8 carries for 95 yards and came close to having his third perfect passer rating of the season, which also would have been another NFL first. He's led the Ravens to their franchise-tying 7th straight victory, taking them to 9-2 ahead of their home showdown next Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. You know, the team we beat for the Super Bowl in 2012. Now, Lamar broke a few more records with his latest performance, becoming the first player in NFL history to eclipse 3,000 passing yards and 1,500 rushing yards in his first 2 seasons. Jackson also became the first player in NFL history to throw 4 touchdown passes and rush for 50 yards in back-to-back games. In sadder news, at least for me in this publication at least, the United States Supreme Court on Monday denied the request of attorneys to hear an appeal of imprisoned serial podcast subject and our friend Adnan Syed. The 39-year-old Woodlawn man has been serving a life sentence since 2000, when he was convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend, 18-year-old Hayman Lee, the year before. More than 7,000 cases are petitioned to the Supreme Court each year, but justices take up only about 2%. We're deeply disappointed that the Supreme Court is not taking this case, said the attorney C. Justin Brown, but by no means is this the end. Brown said the legal options remain available to Saeed's defense team, but he declined to say what they will be. Now, in declining to hear the case, the justices closed the door on the arguments Saeed's attorneys have made in the appeals thus far, including that his trial attorney was ineffective by not calling McClain to testify. Asia McClain, of course, was the key witness, an alibi witness that was not brought forth in the original trial. However, supporters have become optimistic about another possibility on the horizon in light of the recent actions by Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, which I reported on in yesterday's Daily Dose, which is the possibility of the Republican governor pardoning the young man who was sentenced to life as a juvenile. David Jarris, a law professor at the University of Baltimore, says that the window for Mr. Saeed to have his conviction overturned appears to be closing. It may be that the focus will increasingly become a pitch for clemency in light of concerns about integrity of the conviction and the fact that he was a very young man when the crime was committed. We never want to rule out the possibility of rehabilitation, particularly when it involves a defendant who was so young. Hogan's office has not responded to our request for comment on this case. The Baltimore Brewers reporting on the million-dollar question that nobody seems to want to answer. What will happen with the campaign committee funds of Catherine Pugh, who pleaded guilty last week to 4 counts of tax evasion, fraud, and conspiracy? Those funds, tucked away in a checking account at Harbor Bank of Maryland, were roughly $968,790.35 as of January 16, 2019, the last time public reporting of the ex-mayor's campaign committee was due. Now, the Maryland Board of Elections and the U.S. Attorney for Maryland, as well as the state prosecutor's office, have all declined to comment on the fate of the funds. Now, traditionally, a campaign committee is considered legally separate and distinct from the candidate it bankrolls, which means that the campaign funds typically go untouched after an official is convicted. That was the case with 2 high-profile convictions, those of former Delegate Nathaniel T. Oakes and former Senator Thomas Bromwell. Both were veteran Maryland legislators who were convicted of bribery and other corruption charges and went to federal prison. In each case, their campaign committees remained intact, not receiving any new contributions, but also not forced to return contributions, transfer funds to other candidate committees, or donate funds to charitable causes and liquidate. Now, the fate of Pugh's campaign committee is complicated because, unlike the Bromwell and Oaks convictions, Pugh admitted last week that she used more than $35,000 of the Healthy Holly book money to illegally fund her campaign for mayor in 2016. Her scheme was to disguise the book receipts, most, if not all of them, fraudulently obtained by double selling of the Healthy Holly books intended for Baltimore school children, as straw or fake donations put in the names of other people. By this route, funds deposited in Pugh's Healthy Holly bank account were cashed and laundered into illegal campaign contributions by Gary Brown Jr., Pugh's co-conspirator and campaign aide. You can view the rest of this article at BaltimoreBrew.com. Now, the Sun's Jessica Anderson is reporting that 4 Harlem Park residents caught up in a Baltimore police frenzy in the days after Detective Sean Suter was shot in the head have filed a federal lawsuit, saying that police violated their constitutional rights in a failed attempt to catch a cop killer. Suter was found bleeding in a vacant lot in the southwest Baltimore neighborhood in November of 2017 as he and his partner searched for a murder suspect. His death prompted an extraordinary police response, including cordoning off several blocks of the neighborhood for 6 days. That has been criticized by civil rights groups and a federal team overseeing court-related reforms in the department. Now, residents in white neighborhoods would not have been treated the same, said David Roca, which is a senior staff attorney for the ACLU of Maryland, who is representing the residents in this lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court on Monday. Quote, "What happened in Harlem Park was a dramatic and crystal clear example of the many ways in which policing in Baltimore is not the same in black and white communities," Roca said. "It is not enough for the city to say long after the fact, 'Oops, we messed up. Our bad.'" Now, in another Sun article written by Anderson as well, an attorney who was hired to be the Baltimore Police Deputy Commissioner only to have the job offer pulled after her allegations against State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby became public, has agreed to a tentative $75,000 settlement with the city. Michelle Wilson claims that the Baltimore City Police Department conditionally offered her the position of deputy commissioner and that shortly thereafter the offer of employment was withdrawn in violation of her constitutional rights, including her First Amendment rights, according to the city's Board of Estimate agenda posted on Monday. Now, while Wilson and the city have agreed to the terms, they won't be final until a vote by the board scheduled for this Wednesday. Commissioner Michael Harrison announced on May 21st that Wilson will be rounding out his executive staff. But 2 days after holding a news conference with Wilson in attendance, the department announced that she would not be overseeing the Public Integrity Bureau, which includes the Internal Affairs Unit that investigates officer misconduct. Speaking of the state's attorney's office, the Baltimore Sun's Tim Pruitt is reporting that Sarah Chestnut bought her son a gift in November of 1983 of a popular Georgetown University starter jacket, one that will become evidence to convict and imprison the teen and 2 other boys for murder. Now, 36 years later, on Monday, the 75-year-old mother walked with some help across the street to see her son set free and his name cleared. Chestnut and co-defendants Ransom Watkins and Andrew Stewart were formally exonerated Monday for the notorious 1983 murder of a junior high school student over a Georgetown basketball jacket. Police and prosecutors had claimed that the Georgetown jacket found in Chestnut's closet belonged to the victim. Now, they acknowledged that the jacket had, in fact, come from the boy's mother. On this month, 36 years ago, DeWitt Duckett, a 9th grader at Harlem Park Junior High School, was shot in his neck inside the West Baltimore school. Police said that the 14-year-old boy was jumped by 3 youths for his blue Georgetown jacket. He struggled down the hallway and collapsed in the cafeteria. School officials called his death the first homicide in Baltimore City's public school and his killing touched off a firestorm of debate over school safety. The boy's death also became another cautionary tale in a wave of so-called clothing murders, cases where city youth were gunned down over sneakers or sports apparel. Police charged 16-year-old Chestnut, Watkins, and Stewart Jr. with the murder. The three were convicted on the testimony of 4 Harlem Park students who had identified them. A judge sentenced the 3 teens to life in prison. But Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby said Monday the detective and prosecutors in the 1983 case coached and coerced the testimony of the 4 students. Her prosecutors appeared Monday afternoon in Baltimore Circuit Court to ask a judge to throw out the 3 convictions. I'm your man, Mr. Politics, and this has been your Daily Dose for Tuesday, November 26, 2019. For more information on the articles that I mentioned, just go on over to our website at www.dmvdaily.news.